defending my dissertation. It was a private defense. It was extremely stressful. Anybody who's gone through this knows what I'm talking about. Anybody who hasn't gone through this, be afraid. Right, I'm sitting out there after completing this process, and I'm like, I don't even know if I passed or failed. I mean, they really drilled me through the hot coals. I mean, it was terrible. And then, the chair comes out, and I stand up, and he says, Richard, come in. And I get into the room, and the entire committee stands up, and they're like, Dr. Watkins, Dr. Watkins, Dr. Watkins. And it was a really cool experience. It's like, welcome to the club. We were just hating. Right? And so I was like, oh, that's the end of the day. But not really, because 2 hours from there, I had to interview to acquire incubator space for this idea that I had called the Science Policy Action Network. And to make a long story short, or at least that part of a long story shorter, I was approved for incubator space. And so I became a PhD and an entrepreneur in the same day. And that was a really, really cool experience. And going forward, building this concept of the Science Policy Action Network has been absolutely amazing. A lot of hard work. We're definitely not where we want to be, but we're actually doing the work. So the Science Policy Action Network is a 501c3 incorporated with the state of North Carolina. We have a board of directors, we have a website and everything like that. So it's a very, very interesting experience, right? That I don't think I learned along the way. Now I do have to give credit to the CASE workshop, because they actually provided kind of this interpersonal training that I didn't see anywhere at my institution. And I have to give a shout out to the Science Policy Advocacy Group, Julie Dunn in the back. What's up, Science Policy Advocacy Group? Yeah. Anyway, because that was a way in which that I started bringing in resources and information so I could learn more about the science policy world. I mean, coming to this conference was absolutely amazing, and it made me realize that there was a lot of attention at the federal and national level. But in my state of North Carolina, there wasn't that same attention directed back at the state level. And we had the opportunity at the Science Policy Advocacy Group, and I know it's going to get confusing because one's the Science Policy Action Network, one's the Science Policy Advocacy Group. It's all right. We got a chance to present for the North Carolina Office of Science and Technology. And they said, why can't we have something like this in a business model focus on state initiatives? And I was like, all right, I'll get working on it immediately. And so that's when we came up with the idea of the Science Policy Action Network. And so it's been a really cool experience. And our goals or our focuses are science education, science advocacy, and science outreach. And to accomplish those goals, and we really want to bring society and science together so that the progress of the scientific enterprise is intimately tethered to the improvement of the human condition of all people of North Carolina. That's very key, all people. And all people have to know that they're part of that scientific enterprise. A lot of people don't feel like they're part of things. And when you have scientists come and saying, hey, you should care about this, you should care about that, I think what ends up happening is that neither side recognize the values of the other side. And what ends up happening is that communication is just stopped. Yeah, you can talk at each other, but at the end of the day, you have to know what somebody feels and what somebody values. And that's what the Science Policy Action Network does. I mean, we get into the community. In fact, 2 of our very first initiatives came from the community, actually came from the barbershop. I mean, if anybody knows the barbershop, I mean, as an African-American male, that is the thing that you have to find when going into a new town. Like, where am I going to get my hair cut? It's a cultural hotspot of the community. And so it was really important for me to engage the community and have them take part in this process. And so they said, well, Richard, we know you study HIV and you study HIV for so long. One of the things that perplexes me is that I can throw a rock from my business and hit a lab that's world-renowned in HIV research. Yet nobody comes to the barbershop. Nobody comes to the communities. I don't even know where I can get condoms. It's a breakdown of these different portions of society that we have to bring together and move towards a common goal. So the very first initiative was the Look Good, Feel Good campaign, where we teamed up with the Durham Department of Public Health, Adam and Eve lingerie store, and local barbershops. Now that's funny. People always laugh when they hear the word lingerie. But what's not funny is the fact that we were able to bring in small businesses, a public agency, and a large business together for one common goal. I mean, that's the magic of it right there. People too easily laugh at like, oh, Adam and Eve. But that was an amazing, amazing moment. And so that's part of what we try to do. We want to mobilize the entire scientific community to engage the media, policymakers, and the general public. We want to leverage every available media outlet to create an interface between society and the scientific community. And third, we actually want to conduct research about how society actually benefits from the scientific enterprise at the state level and put together resources and effort to communicate that to the general public. That's what we try to do, that's what we have done, and on Saturday we had a science fair for a bunch of little kids, and it was awesome, so that's what we're actually doing. And I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have about that process, but that's the Science Policy Action Network. It is a learning process. Anybody thinking about starting their own business, the learning curve is extremely steep, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I think with that, I'm going to back off the microphone for a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.